So my current role involves one, building strong partnerships with government or academic or medical landscape. My role also involves building the India business for Cactus Communications, establishing Cactus as a thought leader in the space, providing different kinds of upskilling workshops, webinars, sessions for Indian academic landscape. And yes, as I said, basically driving and growing the India business for Cactus Communications. So the role is very vast and wide. One, focus on current. Keep learning really, really well. Never ever make any compromise in what you are learning. You should be able to articulate your thoughts and that learning really, really well. And when I say learning, it's not just कि जो चीज़ किताब से पढ़ाई जा रही है या जो चीज़ टीचर क्लास में पढ़ा रहे हैं, सिर्फ वो लर्निंग नहीं है। उस लर्निंग के साथ आपको बहुत सारे सॉफ्ट स्किल्स भी सीखते रहना पड़ेगा। जैसे-जैसे आप आगे बढ़ रहे हैं, आपकी प्रेज़ेंटेशन स्किल्स, आपकी your ability to comprehend your thought process and communicate it to others, be it in writing, be it in oral form, be it in a presentation. One, I've remained flexible to certain things, and that's something you have to, because you can't have everything the way you want. You can't have it all. People skill कि आप लोगों के साथ कैसे इंटरेक्ट करते हैं, आपका बिहेवियर, आपका एटीट्यूड, आपके इंटरैक्शंस कैसे हैं? आप उनको, बिकॉज़ द बिगेस्ट हर्डल दैट कम्स इज़ पीपल्स कम बिकॉज़ ऑफ पीपल्स स्किल। जब आप एक टीम में काम करते हैं, सबका काम करने का तरीका अलग होता है एंड वहाँ पे आपको प्रॉब्लम होती है कि आप ये चीज़ अच्छी नहीं लगी, उसने ये सही से नहीं किया, सही से जवाब नहीं दिया। सो पीपल्स मैनेजिंग पीपल्स other people is one very, very key skill that each one of you must develop. You have to be learning new skills on a very, very regular basis if you want to stay relevant. With AI all around, jobs are going to change drastically. I didn't finish reading an article. There was one article which says that the entire 9 to 5 job culture is going to change very soon. Right? Your ability to remain motivated. How do you remain motivated even when you face challenges? Is because challenges are bound to come. And that's another skill that employers seek, that how motivated you remain even in spite of all kinds of challenges. So these are some of the
So, did you know that less than 2% of the world's population holds a PhD degree, and even a fewer make a successful transition into the corporate leadership roles? So, today we have a very special guest with us, Dr. Smita ma'am. She and we are, we have the honor of hosting her, and she is currently working as the associate director at Cactus Communication, and she also holds the prestigious PhD degree from the Tier 1 Institute of India, ISC Bangalore. So we are pleased to have you on our podcast Beyond the Ranks, ma'am. So good to have you.
Thank you so much, Lavin, and thanks, Sachin. It's wonderful to be here and having this interaction chat today.
Yeah. I just wanted to set the agenda behind our podcast, and I would like to tell our audience ki मैम स्मिता मैम को 15 से ज़्यादा साल का एक्सपीरियंस है इंडस्ट्री का एंड she also holds she also holds a PhD degree from the prestigious IISc Bangalore. लोगों का सपना होता है और इंडिया की अनडाउटेडली द बेस्ट यूनिवर्सिटी है. सो आज का जो हमारा मेन एजेंडा रहने वाला है वो हम लाइफ साइंसेज इंडस्ट्री को केटर करेंगे. इसके अलावा हम मैम की पूरी जर्नी से जानेंगे कि मैम के पीएचडी के एक्सपीरियंसेस, पीएचडी के इनसाइट्स, उनके रिसर्च के इनसाइट्स भी, और अभी जो मैम ने अपना पीएचडी का एक्सपीरियंस इंडस्ट्री में यूज किया, लाइक हर ट्रांजिशन फ्रॉम द रिसर्च टू द कॉर्पोरेट साइट्स, और अभी उन्होंने 3 से 4 कंपनीज में भी काम किया है. तो उनका एक्सपीरियंस कैसा था, क्या इनसाइट्स थे, वो हमारे यंग जनरेशन को, जो हमारे यंग कॉलेज ग्रेजुएट्स हैं, पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट्स हैं, जो खुद को रिसर्च की साइड स्टैब्लिश करना चाहते हैं या फिर कॉर्पोरेट में आना चाहते हैं, तो उनके लिए मैम के कुछ सजेशंस रहने वाले हैं. सो प्लीज एंड तक बने रहिएगा हमारे इस पॉडकास्ट में. काफी कुछ सीखने को मिलेगा आपको मैम की जर्नी से. So ma'am, without wasting much of our time, we should directly, I'll be starting it would be great if you can tell our audience about your academic background and your current role in your current organization.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lavin. It's as I said, wonderful to be here and sharing my journey. It's a long question. Honestly, question is short, but answer is going to be a little longish because I have to talk about my journey so far, which also includes my academic journey. And the second part of the question is my current role at Cactus,
Yes.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let me begin. I call myself pan India. Very difficult for me to say कि मैं किस state से हूँ, कहाँ से हूँ, what is my background. I'm basically from Rajasthan, born in Gujarat, brought up in Uttar Pradesh. Last 25 years, I am in Bangalore, Karnataka. So it's a mixed, So call myself I am from pan India, or I'm an Indian. Having said that, my schooling, my graduation all happened in Banaras. Uh, I studied in Central Hindu Girls School. It was one of the best schools of Varanasi. Found some wonderful teachers who instilled life values so naturally, so very naturally. Um, the interest in science grew because our science teacher who taught us in third, fourth, fifth was one amazing teacher. She would make us do experiments. हम क्लास में होते ही नहीं थे. She would take us out in the garden, sit there, talk. Very interesting journey we had, and that's where the whole interest in science grew. The other thing was my father is a researcher. He still continues to be an active researcher. So he was the one who would also teach me science and kind of help me develop my interest in the beautiful, amazing world of science. So with these two, definitely, I finished my schooling. 11th, 12th was in Kendriya Vidyalaya at Banaras Hindu University. I was a meritorious student. I was a topper throughout the school. तो वो एक बहुत obvious सा point था जब मैं 11th 12th में थी कि medicine is what I would be doing. मेरे टीचर्स ने बहुत पुश किया जब क्लास 12th में मेडिसिन के फॉर्म्स भरने का वक्त आया तो बहुत पुश किया कि बस अब फॉर्म्स भरो. एंड मेरा ये कहना था कि मुझे हॉस्पिटल में रहना ही पसंद नहीं है तो मैं एक अच्छी डॉक्टर कैसे बन सकती हूँ. But there was lot of back and forth. My father was called in, and that's where he also said that if she does not want to be a doctor, let her pursue what she wants to. And that's where a huge support coming from a father who's himself, who's and my interestingly, my elder brother was studying medicine. But I had that support from my family, and I went in basic sciences because science was something that I was always very, very fascinated about. I joined at Banaras Hindu University for a graduation course with zoology honors.
Mhm.
Thoroughly enjoyed those 3 years because the teachers were amazing, amazing teachers. Every class was mesmerizing, and there was so much of learning. आज आप अगर मुझे पूछोगे तो मेरे को बहुत सारी वो चीज़ें, टेक्निकल चीज़ें शायद याद नहीं होंगी, लेकिन उस उन क्लासेस में बैठ के उनकी जो द वे दे वुड टीच, द वे दे वुड मेक अस अंडरस्टैंड द कॉन्सेप्ट, द वे दे वुड encourage us to learn more and more and more was amazing. Well, I finished my graduation from Banaras, and that's when I decided to move to Baroda for my biotech in masters. Another 2 years at Baroda were amazing because there was a lot of very different kind of learning. I was away from home. There was 15 other students coming from all different corners of India. Mm, it was a mixed batch, so we would work hard, we would study, we would do our experiments, we would do our project works, give presentations, we would celebrate all kinds of festivals. The whole team spirit, problem solving, challenges, everything came together during those 2 years. So another huge learning experience. And it was during that time, and maybe, sorry, I should take a step back. It was during my graduation is when I got an opportunity to do an internship. This was a national level internship, and I had to apply. I was not sure whether I would succeed, but yes, with that whole, somewhere there was a confidence as well that no, let me apply. So I wrote that project with hand. I still remember, 2-page project. And I sent my application, and I got selected. And that was a game changer. I spent 2 months in the summer of 2016, 2017 summer at IIC at Professor MRS Rao's lab in biochemistry department. And those 2 months were a game changer. Having spent that time at IIC, the beautiful campus of IIC, a very encouraging, supportive lab of Professor Rao, really kind of instilled in me that I have to do a PhD, and if I do a PhD, it has to be IIC, nowhere else. Because of my experience, it was so beautiful an experience. Um, so yes, fast forward, I finished my masters, and that's when I was filling the forms for PhDs. There were only two forms that I filled. I also had an opportunity to go to Germany on a fully paid PhD program. However, by that time I was selected at IIC, and I decided to be here at IIC. Joined the lab with full energy, thinking that it's going to be the very same experience I had at Professor Rao's lab. But interestingly, the moment I entered the lab, I realized it was a new lab, it's an empty lab. My PhD supervisor was there, and he welcomed me very warmly, and he said, Smita, welcome, and this is where we are going to spend next few years. And I'm wondering, well, this is an empty lab. How am I going to do, and what am I going to do? But take my words, it was another life changing experience to set up the lab with my fellow lab mates and my PhD supervisor. We had very tough times, like, getting to ask the neighboring labs to give their equipments space to work. First 6 months, I worked whole night, like 12 to 6, because that's the time window I would get to work and use their laminar flow, because I was working with this East. They would not let me work in the daytime. So a tough time, but again, lot of learning. The whole idea of staying put without kind of giving up, because a lot of experiments would fail, there were delays in getting supplies to the lab, but we built it from the scratch. And that is one thing I would cherish throughout my life. I still remember we had washed our dishes, we used to mop the lab. A PhD supervisor would work with us for doing any of these activities. So those were all things which kind of instilled very different kinds of values in us. So yes, finished my PhD, but as I was finishing, I was kind of getting very clear that you know a research career is not something for me. I wanted to do a PhD. I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn a lot of key skills that PhD degree kind of taught me. Deep understanding of a subject, deep understanding of thinking very critically, asking right questions, putting your thoughts together, uh, being very perseverant. Like you can't give up. Ability to manage time very well. Mm, communicate well, because unless and until you communicate, you can't put your thoughts together for your manuscript or your thesis, or for that matter, when you're presenting your weekly and monthly updates in the lab meetings. So
Mhm.
all those skills came in very, very handy. uh, but towards the end, I was very clear that I would not be very happy if I continue a career in academia. And that is when I kind of started to think, but I was not clear what I want to do. But one thing became very clear, like at the end of my class 12th, that at that time it was medicine is not for me. This time it was like academic environment, academic career is not for me. And I was very clear. And that's why I didn't apply for any postdoc. I decided that let me explore. At least I had that kind of courage, confidence in me, that I would figure out what I want to do. I would not go for a postdoc and continue in an academic setting. So yes, with that, I kind of decided to explore and enjoy my next journey. So I hope, Lavin, I've answered that question. I know it's been little
Yes.
long answer, but
नो मैम, लाइक रियली डिस्क्रिप्टिव आंसर, और लाइक जितने भी मतलब हमारे व्यूअर्स से देख रहे होंगे वीडियो, वो लाइक आप हम लोग ना, जैसे जैसे मैं आपका कनेक्शन हूँ लिंक्डइन पर, हम लोग लिंक्डइन पर किसी को कनेक्ट कर लेते हैं, लेकिन इस पॉडकास्ट का जो मेन एजेंडा मैम वो यही है कि क्योंकि एक आपकी जो पीएचडी की जर्नी थी 5 साल, वो आप लिंक्डइन पे नहीं बता सकते। आपने वो 5 साल जो जिए, जैसे यू मेंशन कि आपने स्क्रैच से अपने सुपरवाइजर के साथ बनाया, यूज टू बोरो इक्विपमेंट्स एंड मटेरियल्स फ्रॉम अदर लैब्स, फेलो लैबमेट्स, लेकिन ये सारी बातें आप लिंक्डइन पे नहीं बता सकते, जो वो
बिल्कुल नहीं।
एक्सपीरियंस है। हाँ, तो वो हम सिर्फ एक प्लेटफॉर्म, जैसे पॉडकास्ट एक बहुत अच्छा प्लेटफॉर्म है जो आजकल बहुत ही बहुत ही ट्रेंड में है कि लोग पॉडकास्ट स्टार्ट करते हैं। तो हमारा भी ये एजेंडा था कि हम लोग अपने पॉडकास्ट पर ऐसे ही प्रोफेशनल्स को, इंडस्ट्री एक्सपर्ट्स को बुलाएंगे जिनके पास बहुत कुछ है शेयर करने के लिए। सो मैम, यहाँ पर ना मेरा आपकी जर्नी से एक फॉलो अप क्वेश्चन था, फिर हम आपकी आगे वाले मतलब पार्ट में, वीडियो के आगे वाले पार्ट में आपके करंट रोल और आपके जो कॉर्पोरेट वाला एक्सपीरियंस है उस पर बात करेंगे। लेकिन उससे पहले ना एक क्वेश्चन यहाँ पर था, फॉलो अप क्वेश्चन की जैसे आपने बताया कि 12th में आपने माइंड मेकअप कर लिया कि नहीं, मेरे को हॉस्पिटल वाला एनवायरनमेंट नहीं पसंद, और आईएससी की लास्ट ईयर में आपने फिगर आउट कर लिया कि मेरे को नहीं जाना, रिसर्च
हम्म।
एकेडमिया इज नॉट फॉर मी।
हम्म।
तो अभी लाइक मेरे पास बहुत सारे, लाइक आई एम वेरी मच एक्टिव ऑन लिंक्डइन, तो मेरे पास जो जूनियर्स हैं जो बीएससी या बीटेक कर रहे हैं, उनके बहुत डीएम्स आते हैं कि सर अभी क्लैरिटी नहीं है कि कोर बायोटेक में रहे या कोर फार्मा इंडस्ट्री में रहे, या फिर अपना फील्ड चेंज कर लें, कॉर्पोरेट में आ जाए। तो मैम, उन लोगों के लिए लाइक आपका क्या एडवाइस है? क्या आप कोई सक्सेस मंत्रा या फिर कोई की क्लैरिटी कैसे लानी चाहिए कि वो कैसे डिसाइड करें? जैसे मैंने ऐसे डिसाइड किया था, अगर मैं अपना एग्जांपल दूं, कि एक मैंने इंटर्नशिप की थी 3rd ईयर में, मैं 2 महीने लैब में गया, मेरे को इंटर्नशिप में जरा भी मजा नहीं आया, बीइंग वेरी ऑनेस्ट। तो मुझे फिगर आउट हो गया कि यार, दिस इंडस्ट्री इज नॉट फॉर मी। ठीक है, तो ऐसे मतलब कुछ आप पैरामीटर्स बता सकते हैं या फिर कुछ भी टिप्स बता सकते हैं कि जो एक अभी 3rd या 4th ईयर में जो ग्रेजुएट है, ठीक है, लाइफ साइंसेज
हम्म।
का, वो
हम्म।
कैसे फिगर आउट
हम्म।
करे कि उसे किस इंडस्ट्री में अपना करियर परस्यू करना चाहिए?
देखिए, ये ना बहुत बहुत टफ सवाल है, और इसका आंसर बहुत पर्सनल है। पर्सनल इन द सेंस कि बहुत पर्सनल थॉट प्रोसेस है।
ओके।
मेरा ये मानना है कि आप जिस चीज को जानते नहीं है, उस चीज के बारे में कैसे डिसीजन ले सकते हैं? आपने अपना करियर अभी देखा ही नहीं है, वो इंडस्ट्री अभी देखी ही नहीं है। आप उस पे कैसे क्लैरिटी ले सकते हैं कि ये मुझे करनी है कि ये मुझे नहीं करनी, राइट? तो माय सजेशन ऑलवेज इज दैट, वन, focus on current, keep learning really really well. Never ever make any compromise in what you are learning. You should be able to articulate your thoughts and that learning really really well. And when I say learning, it's not just कि जो चीज किताब से पढ़ाई जा रही है या जो चीज टीचर क्लास में पढ़ा रहे हैं, सिर्फ वो लर्निंग नहीं है। उस लर्निंग के साथ आपको बहुत सारे सॉफ्ट स्किल्स भी सीखते रहना पड़ेगा। जैसे जैसे आप आगे बढ़ रहे हैं, आपकी प्रेजेंटेशन स्किल्स, आपकी your ability to comprehend your thought process and communicate it to others, be it in writing, be it in oral form, be it in a presentation form. Your ability to kind of negotiate, your ability to organize, and that can be your class notes, your room, to your thought process, everything. How well do you organize it? So there are a whole lot of these soft skills that come into play as well. And उसके बाद आप कुछ चीजें, एंड अगेन एक और मेरा मंत्र है कि यू नो जिस चीज आपको क्लैरिटी होनी चाहिए कि जो चीज आपको नहीं करनी, जो चीज आपको नहीं करनी, उस चीज के बारे में आप बहुत क्लियर रहिए। कि जैसे मुझे क्लैरिटी थी कि मुझे मेडिसिन नहीं करना, उसके बाद अब मैं एक्सप्लोर करूंगी कि मुझे क्या करना है। Be very clear on the path that you do not want to take, because otherwise what happens is you will never be able to get that happiness and satisfaction that you deserve. आप उन चीजों को अलग कर दीजिए। Just because let's say your friends are taking a particular path, just because your parents and your teachers are telling you to take a particular path, there might be some merit in that, but at the end of it, it's your life and you have to decide what you want to do, right? uh, your parents, your teachers, your friends are not going to live your life 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line. It's you who's going to live that life. So you should pick up a path that you want to. So first omit out things that you do not want to do and then explore. See, without exploration, it's very difficult that today I decide that, let's say I'm finishing my master's or my undergrad and I decide that I want to get into medicine, I want to get into, let's say, accountancy, or I want to get into some other field. But how clear am I that that is the field which is going to keep me engaged and interested? Unless and until I've experienced in it. So omit few things. Keep building your knowledge around the fields that you are picking up, and kind of deep dive into it. Gradually you will realize whether that is for you or that is not for you. So let me give another example here. Post my PhD, I joined industry. uh, I worked in two different industries for around 3 years or so, and that's when I had taken a break for personal reasons. But during those 3 years and during that break is when I realized that wet lab, even if it's in an industry in a corporate setting, is not for me. I'm not enjoying anymore doing experiments in a lab. I wanted to get more into, I don't know what, but I wanted to come out of that wet lab setting, right? So you gradually start to understand yourself better that whether this is for me or this is not for me. One caution here: if this thought is coming little too often, that every 6 months you become bored of doing something, then there is a problem. But if it's a very conscious choice and over time you realize that, well, this is something I've built enough experience, I've learned enough, and now this is not giving me that kind of joy or that kind of satisfaction, it's time to pause and introspect and then take a call that what actually you want to do. So that's the time when I had taken a break around for 2 years when my second child was born. And I did a lot of self introspection that what actually I want to do. I was again not clear. I was at a crossroad. Uh, but one more point I would like to share here is that these kind of crossroads, where you are a little confused, you're not sure which path to take, will keep coming in your way. And it's good. In a way, I say it is good because when you are at these crossroads is when you should stop, pause, you should think, introspect, and then understand that what have you learned in your previous journey? What are the things that you liked, you didn't like, where you want to go further, right? And that is where the call should be taken. So again, going back, when I was at that crossroad, post those 3 years in wet lab in a corporate setting, I kind of decided that, well, I want to stay connected with science. I don't want to quit science. I want to work in the scientific ecosystem, but not in a wet lab setting, not doing experiments and research on a daily basis. I wanted to get into more into administration, management, communication side of things, right? So my suggestion coming back in one line is that you don't have to take that one call today that you're going to follow throughout your life. Things have changed. Things are not that static any longer that you get into one field and you are going to continue throughout. Uh, you have to remain little flexible, give yourself some time, and if there is a reason to, or you feel that there is merit in making some switch, you should be open to that.
मैम फॉर दिस लाइक डिटेल्ड आंसर। तो मैम जैसे आपने पीएचडी भी करी है रिसर्च में एंड फिर आपने इंडस्ट्री में आप स्विच कर करे और इतने सालों से आप इंडस्ट्री में काम कर रहे हैं, तो मैम आपने क्या डिफरेंस फील किया एकेडमिया में और अपनी इंडस्ट्री लाइफ में?
देखिए, these are two different words will have differences. दोनों की अपनी एक सोच है, दोनों का अपना एक काम करने का तरीका है, दोनों के गोल्स अलग हैं, राइट? Both words have their own merits and जो बोलते हैं pros and cons. अगर आप मुझसे पूछेंगे, academia gives you creative freedom. आपके पास एक क्रिएटिव फ्रीडम होती है, आप अपने क्वेश्चन पे काम करते हो. अगर आप रिसर्च कर रहे हो, आपको आज अगर एक मन में एक क्वेश्चन है, यू हैव दैट फ्रीडम टू वर्क ऑन दैट क्वेश्चन एट योर ओन पेस, इन योर ओन क्रिएटिव स्पेस एंड एनवायरनमेंट. एंड मेरे को एक चीज और लगती है कि एकेडमिया में प्रोसेसेस जो एक होते हैं ना, दैट्स नॉट स्टिल वेरी रोबस्ट. देर आर सर्टन रूल्स रेगुलेशंस विच आर फॉलोड, बट एक जो प्रोफेशनल एनवायरनमेंट के strong rules regulations होते हैं, processes होते हैं, those are not there because that's how academia work. If you implement very strong processes there, at times that creative freedom would go away, right? तो अगर एक experiment एक week में भी खत्म होना है, but for some reason there's another question that comes in and one wants to try it out, that person would do it, and that experiment would stretch for, let's say, 10 days or 15 days. You are not going to be questioned because at the end of it, you're working on that question and you're trying to get an answer for that question. Whereas in a corporate setting, there are very end goal. There are these goals against which the teams work, right? कि आपको इस particular problem का solution ढूंढना है. Let's say that's your goal. There are certain, if you are in a business side of things, there are certain targets to be achieved, right? Now, in order to achieve that goal, in order to achieve those targets, there are certain set processes that one needs to follow. And many a times, when the large teams are working together in a corporate setting, many people would not know that bigger picture, that why are we doing what we are doing. Everyone's kind of, they are all in sync, but many times that bigger picture is missing. So what happens is that you don't get to know the end goal the of the work that you are doing, that how this work is going to contribute to that end goal, especially when you are in the junior levels, right? Again, processes are very strict, stringent, very robust, I would say. Uh, the creative freedom at times is missing. Some industries, some places do give you that creative freedom, but many times that's missing. But it's a much more structured environment where you're working. So, as I said, both have their pros and cons, both are two different words. Transitioning from either of these to the other side is not that easy and simple. Uh, and my thing is that you really need to have a very open mindset. You really need to have uh, flexibility, ability to adapt to that new environment so that the transition is much smoother. Else, if you carry the baggage of your previous environment to the new environment, it's going to be difficult. You will always be like, why do I have to make so many entries, especially, let's say, when you are doing a wet lab work? And again, from my own example, when I moved from my PhD to the industry, I was part of a team where we were standardizing some of the protocols for. I can't reveal the details, but we were working on the wet lab side of things, and I would always kind of question that why do I need to write in three different notebooks and why do I need to enter so much details? It's only much later I realized that that's important because at the end of it there is a possibility of a patent to be filed, and for that you need to have very very stringent documentations in place. So those kind of things, because if you don't ask so many of those questions and adapt yourself to the new environment, uh, without carrying the previous baggage, the transition is much easier and smoother. Let's say from my India Bioscience days to now at Cactus, again, at India Bioscience, it was kind of much closer to the academic setup than now at Cactus. The transition again has been little different, right? But having learned that I need to be more adaptable, I need to be more flexible, and I need to take that new environment which is conducive, but I need to get adapted to that environment much more easily, is what really makes that transition so much easier. I hope I've answered your question.
तो मैम जैसे एकेडमिया में आपने मेंशन किया कि आपको क्रिएटिविटी फ्रीडम मिली थी और इन कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर इंडस्ट्री सेक्टर यू मेंशन लाइक डिड आई मिस समथिंग
No, no, no. No, go
या
ahead.
ओके सो लाइक मैम आपने मेंशन किया कि आपको एकेडमिया में क्रिएटिव फ्रीडम मिली थी लेकिन अभी आपने मेंशन किया कि इंडस्ट्री लेवल पे आपको अडेप्ट करना पड़ता है अकॉर्डिंग टू देयर कॉर्पोरेट नीड्स तो मैम लाइक विच जॉब आर यू एंजॉयिंग द मोस्ट एंड जब आप और मेरा दूसरा क्वेश्चन मैम इसी में कंटिन्यू है कि जब आपने स्विच किया जब आपने इंडस्ट्री स्विच
Hmm.
करी तो मैम आपने अपने लिए नए गोल्स नए टारगेट क्या सेट करें कि आपको एंड में क्या चाहिए
Good question. So first is which of these I enjoyed more, right?
यस सर
So for a person like me, I feel I am very flexible in nature. I really enjoy wherever I am, right? So earlier I was in an academic setup. I really enjoyed my freedom. I really enjoyed my creative space, the way we would work at IIC and even later. Um, During the course of last 10, 15 years, obviously I have also matured more as a person, right? I still need my creative space. I still need my freedom. If I am told that this is how you have to work, for a person like me it's a little different, and I'm very vocal about it. So when I was making the transition from India Bioscience to Cactus Communications, I really studied the culture of Cactus in detail. I understood that this is a place where a lot of value is given to the work life balance, to the whole culture of the organization, how people behave. It's a very people centric organization. So I did that thorough research. Maybe 10 years back, I would not have done. So let's say, again, moving back from PhD to my first job when I was transitioning, I didn't do that kind of uh, introspection or in-depth research, right? That the company environment is going to make a difference. And maybe that's why I didn't like that particular job so much. But over years, I became maybe more mature. I kind of gathered more experience. So if you'll ask me today, I had really enjoyed my stint at IIC. I really thoroughly enjoyed my role at India Bioscience, which was more academic. And it's been now 3 years at Cactus, which is a hardcore corporate setting. Uh, I'm thoroughly enjoying this role as well. I didn't realize how last 3 years have passed by. And all that happened because, one, I've remained flexible to certain things. And that's something you have to, because you can't have everything the way you want. You can't have it all, ever. So that's one mindset that one needs to develop. Second, I chose gradually my path the way I wanted to. It's not that I just followed a particular path. That was not the case. My role at India Bioscience was very well thought of. Then, when I made the transition, I took almost a year to decide on that transition. So it was a very informed decision, and thereby, you really know what you are getting into. I agree and understand that it's not possible for everyone. आप हर डिसीजन इतना सोच के नहीं ले सकते हो, especially early on in your career. You can't do that. There are certain decisions that you must take, and I have also taken that. It's not that I have not done jobs that were, uh, you know, if you'll ask me today, I would never ever want to do that. I've worked for a year or two in such settings as well, but then there are compulsions at times that you need to take up. There might be financial constraints, financial reasons, or whatever. You've moved to a city where there's no other option. So there might be very different, diverse reasons which you can't avoid, and you must take up certain roles. But otherwise, my suggestion is that be mindful of what you're getting into. And once you have taken up that role, give your 10%. Everything is never going to be the way you like them to be. There are things which you will like, there are things which you will not like. Just be flexible. सबसे बड़ा पॉइंट वो है, सबसे बड़ा मंत्र वही है.
सो मैम जैसे अभी अभी तक आपने मतलब आपकी जर्नी से हमने ये सीखा है कि आपको बहुत ज्यादा आज की डेट में बहुत ज्यादा वर्सेटाइल और फ्लेक्सिबल होने की जरूरत है. लाइक पहले अगर हम 20 साल पुरानी बात करें तो ठीक है, जैसे लोग बहुत ही हर्ड मेंटेलिटी या फिर बहुत ही स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड पाथ परस्यू करना पसंद करते थे कि जैसे अगर भाई गवर्नमेंट जॉब लगती है तो उसी के पीछे, वो आज भी है. ठीक है, लेकिन आज अगर मैं आज 2024 की बात करूँ तो ऐसे बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो कि मतलब ये मिथ अब ब्रेक होने लगा है आजकल, और आने वाले 10 सालों में 15 सालों में, और ये मिथ भी ब्रेक होगा कि लोग प्राइवेट सेक्टर की तरफ भी ज्यादा जाने लगेंगे क्योंकि उसमें ग्रोथ भी है, काफी पैसा भी है और बहुत सारे, और अगेन की ये सब्जेक्टिव टॉपिक भी है. तो लाइक माय क्वेश्चन, माय फॉलोअप क्वेश्चन हियर इज कि अब जैसे क्योंकि हमारा जो पॉडकास्ट, जो हमारे टारगेट ऑडियंस है वो कॉलेज ग्रेड्स है, पोस्ट ग्रेड्स है, या फिर जो अभी पीएचडी कर रहे हैं लोग वो भी है. तो उनके लिए एज अ लाइफ साइंसेज और हेल्थ केयर सेक्टर की मैं बात करूं, क्योंकि आपने अकेडमिया में बहुत टाइम स्पेंड किया, आपने कॉर्पोरेट को भी बहुत टाइम दिया है, तो अपने एक्सपीरियंस से आपने जो भी सीखा है, अपने फेलियर, क्योंकि लाइफ में ऑब्वियसली कुछ आपने फेलियर्स भी फेस किए होंगे, तो अपने अचीवमेंट से, फेलियर्स से आप पूरे लाइफ साइंसेज सेक्टर के स्टूडेंट्स को क्या बताना चाहते हैं कि यार बोथ ऑन सॉफ्ट स्किल्स और हार्ड स्किल्स जो आनी चाहिए अपने कोर की, जिस और मतलब मुझे जान लाइक फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ अ ग्रेजुएट, एक करियर रोड मैप एंड द स्किल सेट्स जो एक लाइफ साइंसेज ग्रेजुएट को आने ही चाहिए.
Okay. So there are some, see, टेक्निकल स्किल सेट्स एक होते हैं, डिपेंडिंग ऑन आप किस डोमेन में जा रहे हो. आप फूड न्यूट्रिशन में जा रहे हो, आप फार्मेसी में जा रहे हो, आप मेडिसिन में जा रहे हो, आप हार्डकोर बायोटेक में जा रहे हो, डिपेंडिंग ऑन विच डोमेन. आई होप यू कैन सी मी, राइट?
यस मैम, यस मैम.
ओके, श्योर. सो आपकी एक टेक्निकल स्किल्स बहुत स्ट्रांग होनी बहुत बहुत जरूरी है. मतलब आई कांट एम्फेसाइज मोर ऑन दैट. इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि आप जो भी क्लासरूम में बुक से, यूट्यूब से या जहां से भी सीखते हैं उन टेक्निकल स्किल्स के बारे में, वन, आपको उनके बारे में अच्छे से लिखना आना चाहिए, आपको उनके बारे में बोलना आना चाहिए. सो आपको उस, डिपेंडिंग ऑन द काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चन दैट इज आस्क्ड, और आपको वो स्किल कहाँ इम्प्लीमेंट करनी है, वो चीजें आपकी समझ में बहुत अच्छे से होनी चाहिए. दैट इज वन. Every academic lab or an academic setting or a corporate setting, these are the kind of questions that will be asked at every step. आप इंटरव्यू के लिए जाओगे, आप एक एग्जाम लिखोगे, ये क्वेश्चंस आएंगे ही आएंगे. अदर देन दैट, I guess in today's world, there are few other very key skill sets that are needed. And not much of emphasis is given during our coursework. जब हम कॉलेज में, यूनिवर्सिटी में पढ़ाई कर रहे होते, इन चीज़ों के बारे में, एटलीस्ट मेरे टाइम जब हम पढ़ते थे, कोई भी बात नहीं करता था. एंड दीज आर सम ऑफ द की सॉफ्ट स्किल्स. पीपल स्किल, कि आप लोगों के साथ कैसे इंटरेक्ट करते हैं, आपका बिहेवियर, आपका एटीट्यूड, आपके इंटरेक्शंस कैसे हैं, आप उनको, बिकॉज द बिगेस्ट हर्डल दैट कम्स इज पीपल्स, कम बिकॉज ऑफ पीपल स्किल. जब आप एक टीम में काम करते हैं, सबका काम करने का तरीका अलग होता है, एंड वहां पे आपको प्रॉब्लम होती है कि आप, ये चीज अच्छी नहीं लगी, उसने ये सही से नहीं किया, सही से जवाब नहीं दिया. सो पीपल्स, मैनेजिंग पीपल्स, other people, is one very very key skill that each one of you must develop. And मैं बोलूँ, सब जब हम पढ़ाई कर रहे होते हैं, जब हम इतने अपने फ्रेंड्स, फेलोज के साथ इंटरेक्ट करते हैं, each one of us start to develop that skill, but how many of us develop it in a right way is a question, and that is where one needs to be very careful. Second, मैंने कम्युनिकेशन स्किल्स के बारे में पहले भी कहा, फिर बोलूंगी कि communication skill is another thing that is very very critical, that how well you communicate in various different forms. Your organizational skills, your ability to negotiate, कि आपको कोई काम करवाना है, अब आप उस काम को कैसे करवाते हैं, Again, I'll take an example from my master's days. We would be given charges for various different things in the class, and I was the lab in charge. So I had to make sure that we have the right plasticware, right reagents, right instruments, everyone, everything in the lab before we are starting the experiment. I would decide that who would be doing what. And that kind of organizational skill was something that was taught unknowingly to us as part of that whole curriculum, right? And I'm very sure each one of you are learning those skills as well. It's just that how well you would understand that yes, this is the skill I'm learning as part of this project is what is very important. Your interpersonal skills is again something more like people skill, team skills or teamwork, that when you're working in a team, how well you all spread your responsibilities, how well you execute it on time, put it together, make presentations, all that is again very, very critical. And people, those who have these skills, always are the front runners. Your learning and adaptability skill. I've spoken enough about being adaptable, but learning skill in today's day and age, you can't think that you have done a graduation, you have done a post graduation, and that's the end of my learning. No, it's not. It's never going to be like that. You have to be learning new skills on a very, very regular basis if you want to stay relevant. With AI all around, jobs are going to change drastically. I didn't finish reading an article. There was one article which says that the entire 9 to 5 job culture is going to change very soon, right? We don't know in next 5 to 10 years how the work environment is going to be. So being adaptable and being a learner throughout is the only solution that's going to keep you afloat. And when I say that, I mean that that's going to keep you relevant in your workspace. Your ability to self manage your emotional, physical, personal needs, very, very critical, right? Your leadership skills. Let's say you become a volunteer, you take on a role in college, you have to drive a certain program. These are all things that teach you leadership skills. Again, very, very critical to showcase when you're moving ahead. Your ability to remain motivated. How do you remain motivated even when you face challenges? Is because challenges are bound to come, and that's another skill that employers seek, that how motivated you remain even in spite of all kinds of challenges. So these are some of the key soft skills, I would say, that are very relevant, and each one of us should kind of have a very good grasp of it.
True, ma'am. तो मैम लाइक लुकिंग बैक टू योर जर्नी, तो आपने कभी रेट्रोस्पेक्ट किया है कि अगर आपको कोई चीज यू नो किसी ने आपको आपके सीनियर ने या मेंटर ने कोई चीज आपको पहले एडवाइस करी होती, तो आप शायद और ये जिस स्टेज पे आप अभी पहुंचे हैं उस स्टेज पे आप पहले पहुंच गए होते, या आप और इससे ज्यादा इम्प्रूव कर रहे होते, तो अगर आप यार हमारे व्यूअर्स को बता सकें कोई एक ऐसी एडवाइस जो आपको पहले मिल गई होती एट द स्टार्ट ऑफ योर करियर लाइक 20 years में।
बहुत सारी चीजें हैं. When we were growing up, when during our foundation years, मुझे नहीं लगता कि advice from maybe some close teachers or parents that was there definitely, but advice in terms of career progression, that what is right and what is not right, was neither sought, ना मैंने मांगी, ना मुझे मिली शुरू के सालों में. I would say post PhD, and I was experimenting. I was navigating my own path, I would say. जब मैंने PhD के बाद मैं 3 साल इंडस्ट्री में काम कर रही थी, फिर 2 साल का मैंने ब्रेक लिया. During that time, I would hear a lot of negative things from a lot of people around that, what are you doing? You're simply wasting, and these are words, and I'm sharing it here, that you're simply wasting your PhD degree. Uh, and I was like, because I had taken a 2 year break, and I would, again, there were health challenges. I'd taken a 2 year break, but I also very consciously wanted to spend time with my two kids, two kids who were really small, who needed my time. And that was a very conscious, informed decision that regardless of anything, I'm going to spend time. And I always remain very vocal about it. And that never backfired for me again. People whom I met even later, even in my professional journey, were supportive of that idea. But there were also things that were told to me that, you're wasting your degree. Uh, it's just that maybe I feel that during that time, if someone would have given me a little more advice in terms of navigating those initial few years, I would have. I don't think I regret anything. I don't think that I missed anything. At least today, when I reflect back, and this morning, honestly speaking, I was kind of actually not this morning. Yesterday, I had another session and I was talking to a bunch of these girls about my journey. And I felt that I really don't think that I regret anything in my professional space. Each of those experiences really helped me learn a lot of things. And I've moved on with that learning. In between, there was a job that I did for a year, and very very kind of absolutely not conducive. But what I learned from that opportunity was that, one, I am never ever going to be a boss like that. The kind of boss I had there, I had in that job. And if ever I get a chance to build my own team and my own organization, I will never have those kind of policies and culture there. So, all I'm trying to say here is that every opportunity has taught me something really, really well, something without having regrets. But yes, one thing that I regret is that if I would have met some female mentors early on in life who would have taught me some key skills to manage both work and personal life. And with personal life, I also mean with in terms of health challenges that will come at a later time point, things would have been little more different. So that is one advice I miss getting from maybe some female mentors. But yes, I never had those.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, our last question would be that, जैसा भी आपने बताया कि वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस से रिलेटेड, तो कि वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस का क्या सिग्निफिकेंट रोल रहता है किसी भी एम्प्लॉय के मन में, और या एम्प्लॉय की ग्रोथ में, बोथ प्रोफेशनल ग्रोथ, मॉनेटरी ग्रोथ में। आप अपने एक्सपीरियंस से शेयर कर सकते हैं वो। और लास्ट, क्योंकि आप अपने कैक्टस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में भी आप काम कर रहे हैं, सो जैसे बहुत सारे व्यूअर्स है, सचिन इज कमिंग फ्रॉम द आईटी सेक्टर, तो मुझे तो थोड़ा सा आइडिया है बिकॉज आई एम कमिंग फ्रॉम द लाइफ साइंसेज डोमेन। तो आप हमारी ऑडियंस को थोड़ा सा लेमेन में बता सकते हैं, बिकॉज आई नो nitty-gritties में नहीं जाना, no need to share the details of your current profile or current role, but yeah, overall a layman or a broader picture about your current role and your current organization की क्या करती है, क्या उसके अराउंड थोड़ा सा बता दीजिए।
Okay. Okay. So I told that I took almost a year to take a call that why I want to, whether I want to join Cactus Communications or not. And what helped me take that decision was because what Cactus does and what Cactus Communications is all about. And so, first question first, what Cactus does. Cactus Communications is around 24 years old organization that has been helping research community globally, in order to help them with their publication process, in order to help them with their communications, and also bring to them a lot of technological AI driven tools which help in their research journey. So this is in nutshell what Cactus does. Uh, Interestingly, what why I was offered this role or why I joined Cactus is because Cactus is an Indian organization headquartered in Bombay. We have 9 other offices globally, but India was never a market for Cactus. So Cactus was selling all these or providing all these services, solutions, products to researchers, publishers, government of various different other countries, but not in India. Again, there was strategic reason. And few years earlier is when Cactus decided to get into the Indian market, and they were looking for someone who who comes from life science background, who has understanding of the Indian academic government landscape, and who has strong network. And that's where importance of network comes into play, that आपको आपका आपके connections कहाँ हैं, आपको कितनी understanding है. It just that only if you have very strong network, you have more understanding of that ecosystem, right? Because only through your network is when you get all that right information. uh, so my current role involves one, building strong partnerships with government or academic or medical landscape. My role also involves building the India business for Cactus Communications, establishing Cactus as a thought leader in the space, providing different kinds of upskilling workshops, webinars, sessions for Indian academic landscape. And yes, as I said, basically driving and growing the India business for Cactus Communications. So the role is very vast and wide. Uh, but yes, it's a very, very interesting role because I get to meet various different partners on a very regular basis, understand their roles, requirements, goals, challenges, basis which I provide a solution that, well, this is what you can do, and this is what we can do for you, right? So I am again, in a way, helping them or empowering them through our solutions, through our products. So let's say if someone comes and says that we are finding writing manuscripts difficult, our researchers are finding it difficult. I have an understanding that, well, these are the products that will help you. These are our services that will help you. This is how we can do an upskilling session or a series of sessions for you. So, and with my prior experience and understanding of the academia research space, the gaps, the challenges that researchers face is something that I have a clear understanding of. And that is how now I'm able to bridge that gap uh, of these two different worlds. So again, I'm working at that intersection of academia, government, medical space, and a service or a solution provider who has offerings to help fill those gaps, and in that process empower them, right? And that, at the end, I would like to say, is actually the purpose of my life. Over last few years, I've also realized that empowering researchers and the research community is what my purpose is, what keeps me going, what keeps me stay motivated on a daily basis.
Great,
So
great.
yes.
Yeah. Ma'am, like any thoughts or any comments on work-life balance?
Any thoughts on work life balance? Very, very critical thing, honestly speaking. Unless and until we are conscious about it, um, no one can achieve it. And what is work life balance? It's again very different subjective topic, and it's different for different people. Like, I would speak from my own personal experience and thought. For me, career is important, but family is equally important. And that is why I was very clear that when my second child was born, that I'm going to take a break now. I'm going to take up I would not take up any role which keeps me away from my kids, because as a mother, I was very clear that I need to give them time. So without worrying about my career, and I had that again confidence that whenever I get back, I will pick up the right thread again. So I took off, but yes, during that break, I remained connected with my network. I remained connected. I was doing various other things so that, it's not that I completely went away from the whole setup. So that was again a very conscious decision. Moving on, when kids were growing up, I joined C Camp. I told them that I'll work part time because, again, I wanted to get back to my career, but I also wanted to spend good quality time with my family and my kids who were just kind of getting into schools and growing up. And I feel that was such a good decision because initial years I gave them that time. They themselves became more confident. And little later down the time, by the time they finished their primary schools, I knew that I can take up a full time role now because they were kind of very independent by that time. Right. And I had that confidence as well that yes, they can handle themselves well. So for me, those were very, very personal, conscious choices. Uh, Again, very important to give that time so that you remain sane, both physically and mentally. Very, very important because none of us kind of give that thought and we just run after our careers without even thinking twice that why are we doing this, what are we doing it, what are the repercussions. So there has to be some bit of thought that needs to get into each one of those aspects. And that is where giving importance to your personal space is very, very critical. Giving importance to your friends, to your families, to your own interest and your own self is very, very important. So as an individual, you, and especially more so, and for females, I would say that it's very important that you learn early on that as an individual also you need to give that time. Otherwise, and that's one lesson I guess I didn't get early on, and that's why I'm sharing it here, that you have to give time to your family, to your kids, to your friends, everyone, but you also need to give time to yourself. Very critical to stay afloat throughout, right? So yes, if you really want to enjoy your life, you want to remain happy, you want to be successful, you need to balance it out very well, that how much time you spend on your career, at your workspace, once you're back home, how well you shut off, cut yourself from that space. And in today's word and age, maybe I would also want to touch upon that smartphones in our hand has kind of blurred that boundary very, very badly. And this is especially true for youngsters. Last 1 month, I've been seeing lot of articles coming in paper talking about the impact of screens and smartphones on our lives, which was not so much the case in earlier in the newspapers. So very, very important that if you want to maintain a very good healthy work life balance, you also need to have a balance of how much smartphone or device usage you do on a very regular basis, because that's otherwise going to cut down or your of time from your work as well as from your personal lives, right? So being mindful of these things is very, very critical.
Got it. So, ma'am, that was all from our side. So, ma'am, seriously, it was an honor to have you on our podcast, and so much, ma'am. The entire session was so interactive, like so much to learn from your journey. Like, पहली बार ये ऐसा मैंने like this is our 11th podcast. तो अभी तक 11th और 12th I guess. So अभी तक जितनी भी जर्नीज हमने समझी तो इतनी ज्यादा मतलब जो एक पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस कोई बंदा शेयर करता है ना, जैसे वो अपने अपना ग्रेजुएशन स्कूलिंग लेवल से आपने बताया, क्योंकि कई बार बहुत सारे लोग होते हैं कि वो क्रेडिट नहीं देते अपने स्कूल के टीचर्स को या फिर कॉलेज के प्रोफेसर्स को। तो और जो भी आपने अपनी जर्नी से बताया वो काफी इंस्पायरिंग था। और लोग एट टाइम्स क्या करते हैं कि अपने स्कूल के टीचर्स को या फिर कॉलेज के टीचर्स को थोड़ा सा क्रिप करते हैं, फिर सॉर्ट ऑफ कि उनकी बुराई करना कि यार कुछ नहीं सिखाया, बट वो आपने उस चीज में भी आपने वो पॉजिटिविटी रिफ्लेक्ट करके दिखाई, तो वो काफी काफी पॉजिटिव साइन था आपकी जर्नी से। वो कैसे आपने पूरी
Just to
उनमें
add, sorry, Lavin, sorry, just to add, मैं अभी भी अपनी प्राइमरी स्कूल टीचर मिसेस अलका पटवर्धन के साथ टच में हूँ. शी इज
ओके
75. Every time I go to Banaras, I meet her. She's come and spent time with us here. So बहुत कुछ सीखा है मैंने उनसे, बहुत कुछ सीखा है। तो आप उन स्कूल टीचर्स, इनफैक्ट इस बार भी मैं बनारस गई थी, मैं अपने स्कूल वापस गई, आई स्पेंड सम टाइम देयर. यू कांट इग्नोर योर alma mater. आप नहीं भूल सकते उसको, बिकॉज दैट इज व्हाट हैज मेड यू हु यू आर टुडे.
मतलब मुझे दंगल मूवी का एक कोट याद आ गया, उसमें वो बोलता है ना अपनी जड़ों को मत भूलो, अपने रूट्स को नहीं भूलना चाहिए। तो
बिल्कुल,
आपकी जर्नी में
बिल्कुल.
सबसे ज्यादा जो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट, अगर मैं एक पर्सनल मैसेज जो मैंने सीखा है कि यार स्टे कनेक्टेड टू योर रूट्स, स्टे ग्राउंडेड, स्टे हम्बल, और ऑलवेज बी वर्सेटाइल एंड फ्लेक्सिबल, तभी आप ग्रो कर पाओगे अपनी लाइफ में. सो मैम, इट वाज एन ऑनर टू हैव यू. Thank you so much for your time, and so glad to have you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Sachin. Thank you, Lavin, for having me here and giving me this opportunity to talk about my, if you can call me, the humble life.
Definitely, ma'am. So